Just want to welcome you here this morning. We're so glad to have you with us for what I know will be a compelling and moving conversation with two Palestinians who live in the West Bank and are here to tell us their story. I want to start by thanking the Middle East Institute, who is, as ever, a gracious host to host this event and to have us use their space and to provide all of the technical and logistic support. Our co-sponsoring organizations this morning, in addition to the Foundation, the Middle East Institute, J Street DC Metro, Scale is in the back. Thank you for your partnership. The New Israel Fund and Americans for Peace Now. Hopefully I haven't forgotten anyone. We are all here as resources for you if you have any questions following the event. And with that, I want to introduce really this event's captain, I should say, Stephen Stern, who, if you've spent any time working in DC on Israel-Palestinian issues, you know Stephen Stern. He's a friendly and familiar face, a longtime activist. He's a co-founder and professional. He's the co-founder of the Friends of Cathedral movement, which Ali and Mohammed represent. He supports them with advising and developing programs. He was a founding member of the Mosaic Theater, which hopefully everyone's familiar with, and is the chair of its public programming. Prior to that, he spent 11 years at the World Bank working on community participation and social development, and he himself is an actor and a founding member of an acclaimed theater company called Ababwa. So with that, Stephen, please come take over.
Thank you. I want to reiterate the thanks to the sponsors, all of whom I've been part of in some way as we try to push our values about what Palestinian life means, what it means to Israel, and what it means in the United States, and what it means especially to Palestinians. J Street has been a particular home for me to share this and to share Ali Abu Awwad. And I thank you, Amos, and our co-chairs, Matt Mares and Yitzhak and Ed Koff are here as well. Before I introduce Ali and turn it over to Ali, we'll speak for 25 minutes or so, and your so can be very exciting, but we're going to try to limit it to that because we need to be out of here by 10:30. I want to just say a word about, and they'll say many words, about the meaning of the Tahrir Change Palestinian National Nonviolence movement. Essentially, what you'll hear is something that is doing social development, building Palestinian agency, community by community, while at the same time building a national network, a national movement for nonviolent resistance to the occupation. That is a formula that is starting to deepen in Palestinian society. Mohammed Karaz is the executive director since deep into last year, December 1st, and, but already he is making a change in terms of this deepening it, in terms of management. He has a background in water and energy resources, working for Comet Me, a fellow for Our Generation Speaks, educated in the States, and has come to the helm. Ali Abu Awwad will tell you a lot about himself. I started talking to him about this peculiar portfolio in Washington that I have with communities and cultures and conflict, and started talking to him about his vision. He's been through all kinds of activisms with Palestinians, with Israelis, internationally, and began about 6 or 7 years ago to say it's an independent Palestinian mass movement that I need to put my efforts to building. About 4 or 5 years ago, we had conversations on the ground in villages, in Ramallah, and finally in DC, where he said, this is what I want to do, and I said, yeah, I want to help you, and so here I am. And here is Ali.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for the organizers for this great opportunity. As you hear, my name is Ali Abu Awwad. I am a Palestinian nonviolence activist for a few years. It was a long journey. It was a long journey of being part of the problem and being part of the solution, where I realized finally, I'm not going to tell you so much about myself. I really want us to focus on the movement But about me, I was born as a refugee. My father is from 1948, but I was born in the West Bank. Then I was raised in a town called Beit Omar, near Hebron, near Gush Etzion, that area. And I was born to a very political family from my mother's side. My mother used to be one of the leaders of PLO with Yasser Arafat. So she was arrested for several times because of her political activities against the Israeli occupation. And I remember when I was 15 years old, and when the first Intifada, the first Palestinian uprising started, one time the Israeli intelligence came to arrest my mother for the second time. I was 15 years old, and I saw her when she was beaten in front of my eyes. That for me was enough to take me to the street with all of these kids and start throwing stones on Israeli soldiers. I was not a politician, I was not a fighter, I was this kid who wanted always to have his basic legal rights and practice a human identity in a free environment where I can really practice who I am as a free person. And all of my dreams, thoughts, movements was controlled by that military occupation every day. And sometimes when people ask me, why you Palestinian educate your kids to hate? I'm really get surprised, because if you live in these conditions, I'm not sure you need a specific curriculum for hatred. It does make the job for you. No one taught me to hate, I promise you. And I always also use the example of the Israeli kids who have to stay hours in shelters near Gaza and Sderot. And I'm not sure they need anyone to teach them how to hate the Palestinians. This is our environment, and this is our big school for hatred, which means that meeting, dialogue, good intentions, peaceful movement is not exactly enough to provide us with normal conditions for our life, where we see peace is not a transformation of feelings. Peace for us is change on the ground to have better conditions and dignified life. This is peace for us. And so the conflict for us was not about killing and murdering people. I have never considered myself as a terrorist or even a violence person. I'm not sure if you are 15 years old and you come to the street to throw stones on 60-ton Merkava tank is not exactly violence. I'm not sure that is violence behavior. But you have so much anger and you want to throw out the injustice and you want to scream and raise your voice for normal conditions. So finally, when my mother was arrested in 1987 for the second time, I become more active in the Fatah movement as a young kid. And in 1990, after many events and activities, and my mother was released, then was arrested again for the third time. Then the fourth time, 1990, we were both arrested. And I faced a very hard torture and investigation by the Israeli Shabak, the Israeli intelligence. And they wanted information and evidence against my mother, which I refused to give. And they promised me 10 years to prison. I couldn't believe it, that you can put me 10 years to prison because I throw stones or I refuse to give you evidence, but this is what happened exactly. In the military court, I got 10 years to prison and my mother got 7 years and a half. And then I remember going to that prison broken. I couldn't imagine that this 10 years of my life, I'm going to serve them in prison. I always had dreams of traveling, studying, and I had an insane Palestinian dream to be a pilot. At that time, it was really insane, still until now. Kids dream. And with my broken heart and broken dreams, I went to prison, but I didn't realize that I was going to one of the best universities that you can imagine. Because Palestinian prisoners, Palestinian political prisoners has managed to set a whole system based on 5 committees to lead and manage their daily life. There was education committee, management, national negotiation committee, security committee. I was living kind of a government inside. And I always say that if we Palestinians will manage to have the same system outside, we will be the best. And then, you know, I am the son of the hero, and the hero is in the prison, my mother, so the prisoners took care of me very well, and they start building around me, like everyone, a top high educational system that brought me to speak English, brought me to speak Hebrew. My Hebrew has become like my Arabic. And they taught me many things, and they were giving me a list of books that I have to read, and then they will examine me. And there was, actually I felt that my dignity is not taken, because I felt so much respect by the prisoners. And I felt secure in a way. It was not the criminal environment that you think about when prisons comes to your mind. It's the opposite. And even I felt high respect by the Israeli jailers there. Anyways, month after month, I was asking to visit my mother in her other prison, but Israel always refused. So 3 years after that in prison, me and her decided to go for a hunger strike to see each other. A hunger strike of 17 days that finally we could meet. And I met her after that struggle, and I came back to my prison very inspired, very proud of myself, and I wanted to learn what could bring Israel to accept my rights and to take me to see my mother. Then I realized that I was blinded to the best weapon that I have never used, which is my humanity. I was missing a system there. So that hunger strike was the best experience for me to learn that nonviolence is the best way to achieve my rights. So I started learning about nonviolence. Then after that, we were released by the signing of Oslo Peace Initiative after 4 years in prison. I was released with my mother. Then we start building and creating the constitutions for the Palestinian Authority. We were proud of being part of that process. And day by day, we were losing the credit, because in one hand, we were standing against violence. We were promoting on the ground a new behavior and new identity. It's not the identity of fighting anymore. It's the identity of citizenship, hoping in 5 years that we will have an independent Palestinian state. And day by day, we were losing the credit and even the respect, because the occupation continued, attacks continue, and we couldn't really feel that the dream is coming true by having an independent state. And for many reasons, the initiative collapsed in 2000 with another intifada that has become more militant, and people just lost their hope. So one day I was badly wounded by a settler in my knee who was driving in the West Bank. Then I went to Saudi Arabia for medical treatment with my mother, and after being there for a month, I received the news that my older brother Yusuf, 31 years old, was stopped by a group of Israeli soldiers and very violently killed. Then again, you have to experience this price that you pay every day. And I know what does it mean to live with no rights, what does it mean to lose dreams, and to lose your dignity sometimes, but I have never experienced losing someone. And that for me was much bigger than even revenge. Because that price is I couldn't stand it. And nothing worth such a price. And any action that I will take will not heal that wound, because he will never come back. And in general, victims think about revenge because they are seeking for justice. And because you are convinced that minute that the one who did that to you and who caused you that price deserves to die and deserve punishment. But this is not about punishment. Because the only justice that I could thought about is to have him back. That's justice. But what does that mean? There's no justice in life, and this soldier and his government can continue doing what they are doing. I was stuck. On the other hand, I couldn't take revenge because I'm a human being. I was not born as a killer. I don't want to kill anyone, and I don't think my freedom will come by killing people. This conflict is like endless. This is what I felt. So what shall I do? I cannot just step out of it. I live with it every day. Then I remember reading in prison about nonviolence, and even Malcolm X, when he said something about justice that stick to my mind, but I couldn't understand what he meant when he said, justice is just us. I really couldn't understand what does he mean. And until one day after 1 year, we received a very weird, strange phone call from an Israeli Orthodox Jewish father, telling my brother that there is a group of bereaved parents who have lost someone in the conflict, Israeli parents, and they want to come to us, to my home, to my mother, and they want to pay condolences. And they know what does it mean to lose someone, and they stand for our right, and they cannot legitimize what happened to us. It was just a crime. Hearing that language was really strange to me. How come? And my big shock was when they came and when my mother agreed to receive them. I remember she called Arafat and she called Fatah leaders, she called the mayor and some bereaved Palestinian families. I remember that my big shock in 2002, I was born in 1972, to see Israelis, to see mothers and fathers sitting in my home, Jewish people, crying. Can you imagine? I couldn't believe that Jewish people have tears. You don't see that. You don't see that where you live. You see just their force, their control, all of their behaviors of being part of an occupation, but you don't see the humanity of the other side. You never even consider them as victims. It doesn't reflect until that day. Then I realized that I'm not the only victim on earth, and yes, there is truth in that thing. So I start a complex journey with myself, saying, okay, maybe we are equal in the price of losing someone, but we are not equal in the ground. We are just sharing what is under the ground. We are not sharing what is on the ground. How can I create a normal relation with Israelis as long as they are controlling me? Because if it's about reconciliation, reconciliation needs values, need political values, need social values, need human values to heal the past and to work for a normal present and future. But that was not there. So I was struggling with that actually. Then I identified with nonviolence as a carrier to solution, without expecting that nonviolence will solve the solution next day. It's a process, it's a journey, it's a struggle. It's much bigger than even meeting Israelis and having hummus with them. So I started touring the world, carrying my story, and I joined the Parent Circle Families Forum. I became the spokesperson, the Palestinian spokesperson. Then after that, I said to myself, well, okay, that's nice, this is great, it gives hope. It's really a unique initiative where you see victims working for a solution instead of being used by their own community or politicians or parties to invest more in hate and anger and revenge. But this is not changing my life conditions. It's changing my heart, but it doesn't change my life conditions. Then I also start thinking about Israelis who are participating in peace building, peace movements. And I said to myself, well, I'm talking to the good ones. I mean, leftists who will agree with me about many things. But the conflict is not exactly with them. The direct conflict is with the right wing, with settlers, with the people that I live with. And always lefties told me, you know what, we agree with you, just leave us alone. This is the language in Israel. It's a headache for us. We disagree about the occupation, and even these settlers, we don't consider them as part of us. We don't talk to them. We don't drive to the West Bank because it's an occupied territory. And I realized that this language is not acceptable because people have to take responsibility. If you step out of it, then you are leaving me to struggle and suffer with settlers. I cannot stand and say the Palestinian attacks doesn't represent me and I'm the good one. It's part of my job as an activist if I want to change realities. And honestly, I was fed up with conferences, dialogue, and good intentions. We hug each other, and this is not the peace that my community needs. So I came to Gush Etzion area. I created a Palestinian nonviolent center, which was really insane to do because Gush Etzion is that piece of land that has 12 settlements around. And I wanted to challenge the military and the political system by creating that nonviolent center. And then a group of settlers reach out to me and we start talking, which is not exactly a peaceful talk, but it's really like challenging. Because I still have a huge disagreement with the illegal political act that has been implemented on the ground by creating a Jewish identity in the West Bank based on Zionist Judaism, right of return 3,000 years ago, all of the complex of that identity that has not promoted peace or security, not for them and not for us. Then Ruth's initiative started, then I said, well, okay, this will not recruit most of the people. It's a great crack on the wall, it's a great initiative, but this will not include the majority. Then I start thinking about my biggest dream of having a Palestinian national nonviolence movement. Because most of the Palestinians don't join peace initiatives because they are afraid also of the anti-normalization, and they are afraid of using a price of their dignity by normalizing the relation with Israelis on the expense of their political rights. Not because they don't want peace, but peace, again, for them, is having an independent life with values of democracy, normal social values and political values. On the other hand, I think the peace movement in general has failed in changing life conditions or creating political change. And nonviolence is not necessarily having partner. Nonviolence is an identity that you adopt for your own rights in the first place. Because nonviolence cannot be a project. Nonviolence cannot be a non-profit. Nonviolence cannot be an event. And many of us do dialogue and fly to Cyprus to do dialogue and host 5-star peace conferences. And we are very spoiled, we are the good ones, you know. And especially the best activists as politicians in peace are just the retired ones. When they retire, they become Mandela. And they open these non-profits and they hire the best proposal writers and they send you these nice proposals with maybe some photos from here and there, and they take your money. And they hire, big salaries, fancy offices. This is part of the peace industry. So it's easy to criticize the right wing or the Hamas, but digging with your own people, what the hell is going on? Why there is no peace? If the majority want peace, why there is no peace? Peace has no strategy. Peace didn't recruit Palestinians because for Palestinian peace is something much bigger than emotional transformation. Israelis want to see good Palestinians who speak peacefully. That's fine. But when we send our kids to summer camps for 1 week and they go back to refugee camps, they get more traumatized. So if you like these photos of kids coming together or youth, you will please your heart. But these kids go back to struggle, so they become more traumatized. I'm not saying we should not do that. I think we should do that. But we should not do just that, because just that is a big problem. Then I start reaching to, that's the reminder for me. Palestinian cause troubles, what is it? And then he's my boss, he's gonna fire me. And then I start thinking about nonviolence as a Palestinian independent identity, where people, Palestinians, will feel secure to come, because it's not about the other side, it's not about the normalization, it's not about giving up your right. It's not about even the propaganda that the peace movement sometimes use some Palestinian to do a propaganda. These are facts that stay in our heart, but sometimes we didn't share with you. I'm telling you what prevents us as Palestinians to join these nice initiatives. So I start talking to community leaders, ex-prisoners, people who are and used to lead the struggle, and thinking about this non-violence national movement. Then I spoke to Stephen also. We were walking here before my visa was rejected. And then he said, I'm gonna help you. I went back there and I was amazed with the response of the community. The majority of the Palestinians, when they hear me speaking about, for the first time, without talking about peace, Israelis, non-profits, they got it and they wanted to join. And I remember doing 37 workshops in 45 days. But we were rushing to celebrate the International Peace Day, and we wanted to announce the movement, the Tahrir movement, which means change. And then after 6 months of this conversation here, and doing so much work on the ground, with zero budget, by the way, without millions of dollars, I reached out to these community leaders. We did these workshops, and we came to Jericho for a massive event to celebrate the International Peace Day and to announce the beginning and the establishment of the Tahrir movement. And then 3,500 Palestinians show up. I was shocked. Stephen was with me there. I remember that I was sitting behind, doing nothing. The activists were doing it, and I cried. That gives me hope. Because if my people can come by thousands, standing non-violently, asking for a dignified life and a peaceful solution to the conflict, everything is possible. So after that, we received many invitations from all over West Bank. We reached out to so many organizations. Then we start strategizing our movement, thinking about what is the best way to do it. So we discovered that community leaders are the key of change on the ground, not politicians. There is a big difference between politicians and leaders. Because politicians are managers of reality, managers of conflict. Leaders are change makers. They are managers of the future. So if there is an investment that has to happen, it has to happen in these community leaders themselves, by recruiting them, by training them, but also by facilitating them and adopting their own ideas about making social change that hopefully will affect the political reality. So today, we are working in 13 communities all over West Bank. We have thousands of people as members and followers. We work a lot with women and youth, because we discover that stop saying or educating Palestinian women about their rights. Stop saying that, because women knows very well what are their rights. They know what their rights is about. But they have to be respected. Stop saying, let's empower women. Palestinian women are super powerful, I'm telling you. I'm the son of that hero, and I know. But this power has not come to the stage of political leadership. Let's join them, not guide them, join them to practice their leadership on the ground by providing all the resources that they need. So we went and we educate men about women's rights. We didn't educate women about their rights. And guess what? It works. It works because men are controlling women very much in our society, more than here. Also here, but anyways. So most of the members of Tahrir today are women and youth. And we also discover by working with Palestinian youth that this generation is less political and more social. They are not interested that much in political parties. Actually, they have anger toward their own leadership because they felt ignored by their own leadership, but also ignored by the occupation, where you see young people coming with knives, not just to kill Israelis, even to suicide, to die. They come to die. When you come to a group of soldiers with a knife in your hand, for sure they're going to shoot you before even you reach them. Why this generation is so angry and not active politically? That's the big question. So we start talking to them, not guiding them, not teaching them humanity. I'm telling you, they are so human, they are so peaceful, but they are so desperate. So we start listening to them and then grab their ideas and build around these ideas effective projects on the ground where they can become involved in it. And Mohammed can tell you more exactly what you do. We do around 7 projects on the ground. The best one that I like, we call it Messengers of Change. We work with these community leaders for a training and everything to create messengers where they go back to their community and then start recruiting people and spreading the identity of nonviolence, saying that it's not a tactic, it's not a strategy, it's who we are. We are nonviolence and we are for nonviolence. So finally, we also thought, how do we create unity between Palestinians themselves? Because our political parties are so conflicted, they are so argumentative between each other, and there is a gap between the political parties and the community. People have lost their hope. Even if you talk about election and next election, believe me, if we put Mandela in Ramallah and Gandhi in Tel Aviv, I'm not sure we will have peace. Because the system has to be fixed. I like my conversation with that Rabbi Mark Klein. Yes. When he said something really amazing. He said, you cannot fix the car by changing the driver. So even if we change the drivers, I'm not sure the car will go. So that's just to understand how things work over there. And for us, investing in community leaders is the best political change that can be created by empowering them. Hoping in next September also, I will go back to say that we wanted to create unity, so we came up with an idea to create a Palestinian nonviolence charter. What does that mean? Sometimes you have to be clear to your people and to others. So we wrote the principles and the values of our movement, the vision of our movement very clearly, with a strong message that we have no hate toward anyone. We are for ourselves, we are not against anyone, especially Jewish people. That is so important to be said, because I know that the fear of the Jewish people has become our biggest enemy. It's not the Jews themselves. Our adoption of nonviolence is our first step to freedom, because this will overcome that fear. So around that charter, we start reaching to other organizations, because it's not just about the Tahrir movement. It's about a unified Palestinian massive movement that will create some kind of pressure or support on political leadership on both sides to sit on the table and come up with painful solutions. So we managed to get 42 organizations to sign on that charter. And I don't take this for granted. Because sometimes organizations are conflicted more than the conflict. We have competition between activists. And everyone is trying to weakness the other to get the resources. We don't believe on that. It's the time to talk and to respect each other and to partner with each other. No one is leading anyone. Because in Palestine, everyone is a leader. Okay? They want more to respect their role. So other organizations and other even Palestinian activists, one of them is this great businessman, his name is Bashar al-Masri. And he created Rawabi. Rawabi is a very modern city in the whole Middle East. I'm so proud of it. Because it gives an example that Palestinians who built other countries by their hand and mind can really invest in their own. So he reached out to us, we went to talk to him, and then he said, how can I help you? Then we didn't ask him for money. We told him we want something more than money, we want you. We want to partner with you. So he offered now all Rawabi as a resource, whatever we need. If we need a place, if we need an office, if we need whatever. Then again, we came back to him and they said, I'm sorry, it's not enough. We need more. They said, what? We need you to come out to these communities where we work in Jub al-Deep, like example. Jub al-Deep is a great model of nonviolence. This ignored community that lives with no water, no electricity. Some women, I know a woman that her son used to have an asthma, and she has to put that machine, so she has to walk for kilometers back and forth 3 times to Beit Lahem city to provide her son with that machine. And then they came together and they said, well, we are led by our men, but our men are not doing the job. They created this society and they took the leadership where they reached out to Comet.me, the Israeli organization that provides solar system in the West Bank, and then they provide the village with a whole system, and the village today has electricity. And even the system was confiscated by civil administration in Israel. Then they have to hire lawyers with Comet.me and to fight for 6 months where they brought the system back. And they now provide them also with water and resources. And we start reaching out to them, working with them about nonviolence strategy and nonviolence philosophy, where they start reaching out to the whole world. J3TU has helped them to create a clinic in the village. Can you imagine a whole community has no clinic? And by J3TU help now, they have a clinic. And now Tahrir is building for them a resource, a guest house and a resource center where volunteers can come, because people ask us, what can we do, especially students in these universities. Now we offer them to come over there and volunteer with the community, because there is a guest house, you can sleep, you can have some food, and then you can help them with any resource, not just money, any experience that can promote change on the ground. This is one example. The other example is a freedom garden in South Hebron Hills that we want to create, and in Susia, another center that we want to create also, because these names are big in non-violence resistance. So we took Bashar al-Masri, tomorrow he's visiting over there, and now we hope that we will take his money, but we will take his team also. Then we came to him 2 weeks ago. Mohammed went to meet him with the activists, and they said, well, it's not enough. Then he said, what now? Then we said, we have an idea. We want to create the first Palestinian nonviolence college. We want to teach and study nonviolence, but we want to create the first college in the world. And he was blown away with the idea. He said, yes, this is a great idea. And now it's just an idea. So whomever of you have resources or contacts, how can we make this happen? We have the place, we have this amazing businessman with all of his contacts. We can start establishing that college for nonviolence. Finally, I spoke a lot. This is in general what Tahrir is about. Today, I feel really my community is coming back to itself, proud of speaking and acting non-violently, because it's not the normalization system that prevents us to join non-violence, but also it's to bring Palestinians not just to resist the occupation, but it's also to take responsibility and say why there is garbage in our streets. What is the connection between this and the occupation? Why there is corruption? What's the connection? Why there is lack of rights? The crimes against women because the owner, the family owner issues. There are huge social problems that divide us and prevent us to to create this massive political change on the ground. We are dealing with social problem, and around that, we are building a huge, massive movement that hopefully, in 1 or 5 years, you will see one day 100,000 Palestinians standing on the street, and this will transform the whole Israeli society and the whole world. I know this journey is painful. It's hard. You cannot imagine how much effort we put and we do. And we need you. We need you as partners. We need you as supporters. Whatever resources can you provide? Because this is what our responsibility on the ground. And then you have this responsibility to make a different and to have a different world for all of us. And I feel that sometimes when you speak about peace, I know it's painful. I know that peace required a high price that we have to pay. Peace is about compromising. Peace is about healing. This is a painful price. But whatever the price of peace will be, however it will be painful and difficult, it's much easier than the price of this conflict. It's much cheaper than the price of conflict. We cannot keep killing each other. We cannot keep acting as victims. We cannot keep having this competition of suffering. Who suffers more? I'm not here for that. I'm not a victim. I have no competition with anyone. We are here for our dream to become true. And being here in this country is so important to us. Thank you.
So we have about a half an hour for you to engage with Ali and Mohammed. I think you'll get your chance in the Q&A. And you had left some response forms on your chairs. If you are interested in staying in touch with us, we'll talk more at the end. This is something we want to hear from. So let's have...
Yeah, these papers are so important to us because we learn from you, but we also want to partner with you. And this can be the first contact and the first bridge between us. So please pay attention to that.
Okay, so are there questions, short comments? Yes.
Yes, I've recently reviewed the book, The Palestinian Delusion by Robert Spencer, looking at the whole history of the peace process. And I'm also in the process of reviewing the book by Andrew Bossom on the legacy of Islamic anti-Semitism. And both of them analyze really a vitriolic legacy of Islamic norms that are anti-Semitic, running throughout 1,400 years of Islamic history, and particularly in the Palestinian context. They've described really a jihadist culture among Palestinians that seeks the destruction of Israel. Have you, as a peace activist, ever done anything to counter such jihadist ideology in Palestinian culture?
Well, for me, I think you don't need a specific ideology to be a terrorist or to be a peacemaker. Whether you believe in God, you don't believe in God, this is not the issue. I come up from a very secular society. And this is even the secular constitution that we choose after Oslo. What is written in these books sometimes, if you want to be a peacemaker, these books will give you the best philosophy about peace. As a Muslim, I'm telling you, there are many tasks in my book telling me I have to do peace with Jewish people. وَإِنْ جَنَحُوا لِلسِّلْمِ فَاجْنَحْ لَهَا. If they go to peace, you must go to peace. This is what God told Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. On the other hand, you can see jihad and fight and defend yourself, and I'm not sure also in other books it's all peaceful. I know a little bit. You know, I have teachers also. I have the best teachers in Judaism. It's not all about peace. My question today is, my argument today is, this conflict has religious values, but it's not a religious conflict. And the solution has to include these religious values for religious people to practice their religion in a free way. Means that we, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, has a tremendous historical, ideological, national, political belonging to these religious places where our religion was created. Judaism was created in Hebron. That doesn't mean to build a settlement in Hebron and to transfer the people of Hebron. It means how do we guarantee for religious people to practice their identity but not on the expense of each other? That's the big question. On the other hand, I believe that politicians should be forced to design a political system that will guarantee for these identities to fit with dignity. I have no problem with Jewish people practicing Judaism in Hebron. My problem is with the occupation. That's the problem. And believe me, Palestinians especially and Jewish people who live in Israel are the best human beings on earth. I know them very well. I'm not lying. I know them. But they have never been created an environment to practice who they are. And that's why I think 99% of my society, my community, are not involved in direct killing and action, but they are silent. They are surviving to feed their kids. That's the problem. We want to empower the silent majority, not minority. And by the end of the day, I'm not the best person to speak about religion, but I think the Creator, if we believe on Him, He has created all of us, all of these religions, in one land, in purpose. وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. We created you different as people and as tribes, enabled to know each other. This is my Quran. If there is another Quran, I don't know. I know one Quran.
Yes, here.
I have a question about the Palestinian prison. And I've been going back and forth to the Holy Land for the past 10 years with the National Cathedral.
Yeah.
And in all my visits, I've never heard anything about what goes on except for torture in the prisons. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about it.
Well, this will need a whole day for that, but I'll tell you. Israelis deal with Palestinian fighters as terrorists. Palestinian fighters see themselves as a freedom fighter. So, the torture in prison is such a hard thing. Physically, psychologically, I mean, it's how do I describe that? I wrote this in my book, hopefully it will be published somehow, one day. But it's like taking your dignity. These officers want just to break you down by anything. Thanks God, it was not about rape, like example. It was not about, but still physically and I mean, I faced the torture, just example. They were putting these things on the cuffs behind my back, laying down, and they keep closing because they are not locked. I'm putting a chair on my stomach and sitting on that chair. This is an example. But they're stupid. They wanted information about my mother. I would lose my life. And instead of causing my mother suffering in prison. You cannot fight an identity. You can fight behavior, but you cannot fight identity. And again, I'm going back. We should transform the conflict from a conflict between two identities to a conflict between two behaviors. Because if we change behavior, we secure identities. But if we ask people to change who they are, they will never change who they are. So violence is behavior. Occupation is a behavior. This is what we need to change, not the people. So if Israel wants to stop Palestinians from fighting, torturing them will not help. Because for them, fight also is an identity, because this is the system. We wake in the morning confused between two identities. Are we fighters? Three, are we part of revolution like before? PLO was created to destroy Israel, but not anymore, because there is a peace agreement. Then you switch to other identity and ask yourself, am I a citizen? No. So I'm not a citizen and I'm not a fighter. Who the hell I am? Tahrir came to answer that question by putting the two things together, saying, we want to resist the occupation because this anger will not disappear, We want to do it non-violently, but we also want to create responsibility, because not everything is because of the occupation.
Howard.
Yes, Howard, my
I've
friend.
been listening to you for 14 years. I'm getting older, you're getting smarter. And more. I don't know how that's happening. So I want to just sort of direct a little bit to the current political situation.
Yeah.
Career now is working in an environment in which the U.S. administration, I think you can only say, is anti-Palestinian in a very systematic way. And just yesterday, there was news that this peace plan, which was never discussed with the Palestinians, which won't involve negotiations, is going to be unveiled in a meeting with Gantz and Netanyahu. My reaction to that is that there's almost nothing anybody can do to stop this thing, with the single exception of a massive, nonviolent reaction on the ground by Palestinians. And I worry about that because I know what's happened to nonviolent actions before. It becomes violent confrontation in a calculated way by the IDF. What do you see in this political context as something Cathedral should do with all the 42 organizations that signed on to your charter to try to resist this, or at least give it publicity from a Palestinian perspective?
This man who's speaking is an activist. For years he was leading USAID in Israel and Palestine, and he held both sides. I just have to say that. And when he speaks from knowledge. And I like your question. Number two, I think the Palestinians today are feeling that they are left alone. They are left by the international community alone, but also by their own conflicted, weak political leadership. Because our political leadership has lost its resources, especially promoting a political change for Palestine. Number two, I know, it's not new, that this conflict is a good environment for some politicians or governments to invest in the conflict, not in the solution. We are paying the price of outside politics with my soul. Number three, I go back and say the only solution for us as Palestinians is not to wait for help. I think we should tell the world and teach the world a lesson of humanity and a lesson of nonviolent struggle. Number four, if you lose the support of governments, you can say what government I cannot say. I just got my visa. I don't want to have problems. If you lose the support of the government, will lose the support of the people. Means that I was talking to this Jewish kid in that synagogue about leadership and political system and the role of this country. Then I asked him, where does politicians get their power from? Then he said, from the people. Then I said, no. Politicians got their power from political system. Then I said, where does leaders get their power from? Then he said, from people. And I said, yes. We are here sitting with you because you are our partners. I'm not waiting for the government or for anyone else to solve problems that we also partner. We want to partner with you because we are desperate about the government. Don't push me to say more. You will not see me again in this country. And you know what? I know this is hard. And I think you have a tremendous political role in your country because of what Harold just mentioned. You have to reach out to your politicians. And you have to reach out even to your Muslim partners or whomever. And we have to provide you with a massive movement that will allow you to stand up for us. Otherwise, it will not happen. Not the Hamas rockets from Gaza will help you, and not the stabbing, and not any other a politician who will please your heart. I'm quite more to the people today, not to the politicians. I'm not expecting so much, even from my own politicians.
John. Ali, thank you for your presentation and also for your answers. I think you spread some seeds that will blossom also in this room. But I wanted to ask you about another matter. You've spoken about the West Bank and your activities there. Have you been able to develop your movement also in Gaza? And also perhaps you could say something about your outreach to the wider diaspora.
Yeah, Gaza was a challenge and still a challenge for us. We have contact in Gaza. Some people are contacting Mohammed from Gaza and they want to be part of Tahrir, but we are very careful there because we want to secure people's life also. On the other hand, I believe that the change cannot happen from outside. It has to happen from inside Gaza, not by force and not by anything, but we have to create a successful model of a massive struggle that will inspire people of Gaza to have an alternative and stand for them on their legs. Because on the other hand, people of Gaza look outside, look to the West Bank, it's not exactly peaceful, and they look to the conflicted leadership and they don't have alternatives to stand for. So considering that, even look at this freedom return march in Gaza. Tens of thousands of Palestinians are marching toward the borders. Many of them were killed and lost their life. Many of them has been used by their own political parties without even knowing. I think it's a crime to let 100,000 people marching non-violently and shoot a rocket. Because the world will focus on the rocket, it will not focus on the 100,000 people. You have to do it with a strategy, with unity, with so many resources. I'm not expecting change that can come from outside. On the other hand, if the third party, and going back to Howard, if the third party will be pro-solution, I promise you, if people will see a third party playing an effective role toward this conflict, the Gaza people will stand up because they have something to have hope for. Today, it's hopelessness from the Egyptians, from the Israelis, and from the Palestinian leadership. It's not just miserable conditions, it's the losing of trust of themselves. People are losing the trust. Even though there are great initiatives in Gaza, by the way. There is youth movement today, are doing a great job. There is women movement today doing a great job. I think you have to be more informed what is going on in Gaza. And finally, I think Hamas and Fatah doesn't want election. This is what I think. Because both of them know that they lost a lot of credit among their own people. And even if we have an election, whom to vote for? Are we voting to a nice person who will be again Mahmoud Abbas, who will need another permission from the Israeli army to move from Ramallah to Hebron? The system is problematic. Our political system has zero political credit. Zero political credit. It has turned to become like a society, a charity. This is not a political system and this is not a government. This is an authority that is doing social services, barely doing the services.
Sir. What you have been telling us and the way you've been speaking certainly reminds me of the philosophy and style of Martin Luther King. Organizing massive nonviolent movement. You said that you look forward to when you'll have 100,000 Palestinians standing up for nonviolent, and I think you used the word protest. How far along are you in that path to having 100,000 or more Palestinians standing up in peaceful protest? Perhaps on the Israeli-only highways to demonstrate to the world that it is really time now to recognize Palestinians as a nonviolent people standing up for their rights?
I think we're not to that level yet. Honestly speaking, I feel sometimes Palestinians has lost even the hope of that, but socially they can come together. First, we need people to come together first and to feel that this massive gathering can happen and they can do it first. Number two, we cannot do it alone. We need also every human being, when it comes to a struggle and direct action, we need to partner with many people. Because it's not just the Palestinian by themselves, but Palestine has to create and initiate that with a clear plan. What are you inviting people to be part of? So for us now, the phase that we are is just to create unity, to create leadership, and to create social change. And then the second step, maybe we have also some secrets we cannot share. I mean, what do you do with the political level? What do you do in the political level? We have to secure the movement and not share everything, but I can say, yes, we are thinking of a political change. I mean, inside the Palestinian society. We're not a political party. We don't want to replace the Palestinian Authority for sure. We are not willing to create a civil war in our society. One conflict is enough. So when we deal with all of that, I think by itself it will come to what you just said. Yes, and I believe this is needed. It's part of any non-violent struggle, whether it is Dr. King or Mandela or Gandhi. But we have to be aware that these conflicts and the solutions are different totally from our conflict. Here, this conflict is not between one society. It's not between black and white. It's not between British who came from England to occupy India. It's not exactly that. You know, Jewish people believe that they have historical roots to that land. It's the promised land for them. You know, that this is what makes it complex, but the belonging of two people can be designed in a new way. So we are changing also the view. How do you view the other side? Because we use, you know, the conflict was about to be or not to be. One side has to exist in this land. After Oslo, and even before Oslo, the relation has changed. Today, more than 70 years together, not in the best marriage and not in the best divorce. Do what I say always. We cannot ask for divorce, but we cannot get married. We cannot have one state, and we cannot have two divided states. It has to be a relation of a couple that whether they decide after that to get married, which is fine if they decide, but if they don't get married, at least they will not kill each other and divorce. We need each other. So our non-violent struggle has to be different. We have to grab from each experience something, study it, and then come up with our own non-violence approach.
I think we're also asking about the timeline, right? Like when you're asking about the timeline, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the full question. What are you talking about the timeline for when we're gonna get to the 100?
Yeah.
That's a great question. So in terms, I'm sorry, I didn't speak much because I think you guys deserve to get the best answer from the best speaker here. So I'm putting myself behind. But in that regard, we are anticipating for that to happen in about 3 to 4 years.
2 to 4?
3 to 4. For the 100,000 Palestinians plus you, so 100,001. So we go together.
Not from you, 2 to 4.
And again, it's very challenging because here we're talking about behavior change and social change, which is something that you cannot, easily and metrically measure. You need to, like it's not that you want to install if we're talking about 10 families that you want to serve them with energy systems. If you do 2, that's 20%. If you do 5, that's 50%. But when it comes to social change, it gets a little bit trickier. So we anticipate to have that within 3 years, and of course it depends on lots of factors and mainly resources, because those activities are how we recruit those young leaders and equip them with the skills and tools that they need in order to go to their communities and do the change. It's a lot of resources, including money. So for instance, right now, our budget for this year is about $500,000, it's like $407,000. And until now, we have raised about $200,000, and we're continuing to do that in our speaking and fundraising tours. So there are lots of resources that can be integrated in order to make that happen. Again, as Ali said, it's a very, very difficult mission, and it's very, very hard to measure where we're standing in that, but we see a hope that we can make that happen within 3 years from now.
Tom.
Thank you, Stephen.
Going hardcore is always better.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Stephen, for arranging this. I'm Tom Getman. I've worked on this portfolio for 30 years. Ali, you have framed for us what so many of us in the room, everybody in this room has believed for a long time and tried to put shoe leather to. You capture our hearts, you give us hope. I can wait more than 2 years, maybe even more than 4 for the big march.
We can.
Because some of us have been working half our lives on this. My question is about your university, the Nonviolent University. You probably know about American University's Nonviolent International Program, and some of your folks who have signed the list, signed the document, have been trained here. And I'm just wondering if you're working with Mubarak Awad on these issues, and if you can tell us anything about the back channel negotiations that have been going on between people like you and Mubarak and Hamas and others, in the hopes that what you've translated into leadership at the local level will have impact at the negotiation level.
Do you want to say just who's Mubarak Awad? Because I'm sure
Excuse
some
me.
people...
Mubarak Awad is the director of Nonviolence International, and he's a professor at American University. And he's trained people in exactly what you're talking about, and has been, along with Stephen and others in the room, working on some of these back channel negotiations. If you haven't met him, it'd be wonderful if you would. Maybe we can arrange that.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, Mubarak was deported by Israel in 1985.
That's right.
Because he created the first Palestinian, not the first, but a Palestinian non-violence march in Jerusalem, actually. So he was deported, and he's a citizen of this country. Yeah, Mubarak and Sami and everyone are our partners.
Great, yeah.
We met a lot. I brought Mubarak to do a workshop with Palestinian young activists. He was inspired by them. And now we're going to do some training in July, hopefully, with ex-young prisoners. And Mubarak has a big project about that and a curriculum. And he was teaching in Haifa University.
That's right.
for 1 month, where he was criticized. But also we are having back channels also with leadership, and we are trying to influence the people who are even angry non-violent. There are people who promote non-violence but with hate. He and Mubarak are working to create a new model on that. We admire him, and he's one of our strategic partners.
And
Okay, thank you so much. Diane Perlman, School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution at George Mason, and also Transcend. And I've been involved in these issues for many years. I've been to Gaza in 97, 99, Gaza Community Mental Health Program, and Ramallah. So 2 questions. One is, I go to the UN for the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the Ban Treaty, and the recent conference on nuclear weapon-free zone in the Middle East. So the Palestinian delegates are there, and they voted on the Ban Treaty, I think was their first vote. So it's a very dignified, prominent, respected process. I don't know that that translates into this, but my second question is probably more relevant. I'm interested in psychological manipulation of fear and dehumanization. And, in recent months, when J Street was here, there's some new energies, and I'm wondering 2 things that they have an impact. One is the series Our Boys. There's a 10-part series, not
The HBO series about
HBO series.
2014, the Abu Awwad family. And
Oh yeah, I didn't see it.
So I'm wondering, and I met this one director, that, one thing is sort of like humanizing the enemy, and they had a Palestinian director. I'm wondering if that had anything, and then I learned about this group on being the Yakad, getting together, and it seems like there are new energies happening to shift consciousness and push the other side. So can you say anything about those, or if you notice any openings or shifting around that?
Again, these joint activities and organization are extremely important. Not just to promote hope, but also to prove that we can work together to change reality. But they are not enough. Also, in the Israeli society, you cannot imagine how many non-profits are there. Can I give you a number? 32,000. 32,000 non-profit in Israel. In Palestine, there are 4,000. 4,000 non-profit. And you see this coalition of 100 peace organizations, that lobby of 100 peace organizations, and then you ask yourself, what is this peace? If we have hundreds and thousands. I think many of them are doing a great social work, but not exactly as to do with that. Many of them deal with trauma, which is also important. But if these organizations will not come together one day in a united, massive movement, I'm not sure that we can guarantee enough pressure and political leadership. When I founded Tahrir, a few months before, I took 10 Israelis and 10 Palestinians to be in 1 week training. How do you create movement? Not organization, movement. And honestly speaking, I brought one of the top activists of peace building, joint organization, and also individuals. The Israelis couldn't come together when it comes to a movement. They couldn't. Not because of bad intention, not misunderstanding. One of them, he came crying. He came saying, Ali, we cannot help you. We are so divided. You think we are better than you? We are also so divided, but in a social level, not in a political. We as organization has ego. We cannot work together. We cannot part together because we want also for each one to protect his own organization. Then I said, it's not about resigning or finishing your organization. It's with your organization you can be part of a bigger organization. And they failed. The Palestinian, 80% of them are leading the movement today. The 10 Palestinians. They are leading Tahrir. Because they realize that for us to act, it's not enough to have an organization. Otherwise, Tahrir could be a non-profit. We don't need more non-profit and we don't need more political parties. So this is a big challenge among people, and I think you can play a role in that. Maybe some of you or your organization can help to facilitate how do you put more pressure on us? How do we become more united? How do we create movement? Many activists has no idea how do you create a movement. That's to create an organization, you hire experts and they run the organization. But running a movement, that's a big deal. We also need to learn how can we be effective. I love this movement in Israel, Women Wage Peace. They brought 32,000 women to march. But they succeed, why? Because they didn't mention the occupation. Look at this, in Israel. Because when you mention the occupation, you lose many people. They were clever. They said, let's come together first and demand a peaceful solution to the conflict. And they are growing. And they struggle from lack of Palestinian participation because they didn't mention the occupation. These are challenges that we want to learn how to deal with them and keep our movements growing.
The last question, Ed. Then informally, we'll be here for a while. They're going to be kicking us out soon.
A couple of questions focused, on where Tahrir fits into Palestinian society and politics. One is, could you give me a sense of sort of name recognition of Tahrir in Palestinian society? How prominent are you in the public psyche at this point? And the second question, you obviously are challenged, whether you want to be or not, to establish centers of power within Palestine. How serious an obstacle is that for you? And even further, is it a danger for you?
Well, we are very careful of media and spreading Tahrir all over Palestine in a fashion model. The first thing that organization bring is media to spread the message. Well, we don't do that. Even in Jericho, the only media channel that we brought is the Palestinian television. We didn't brought CNN to show you that this movement exists, because we are very careful of the challenges that has to do with the second part of your question. We don't want political leadership to consider us as an alternative to them. We don't want them to consider us as a threat on them. We don't also want the Israeli occupation to feel that we are against Israel or Israelis. This is also fit there. We are working like on the salt. It's very complicated. It's very difficult. And that's why we succeed, because we focus in leaders. We didn't start with the people, we start with the community leaders. You will see Atif Uridat. I'm hoping to mention his name with the camera. He served 23 years in prison. He was leading Al-Aqsa Murder Brigades as a fighter. Today, he's one of our leaders. When this man stands in the West Bank, no one can argue with him. He's a force by himself. He's a force because he has rich credit. In general, Israelis will say he's a terrorist. We don't talk to this man. But we recruited him to be a non-violence leader now. This is where our energy comes from. Yes, there will be a time when we grow that we will be maybe in danger. But it's not based on Ali or Mohannan or Riyad or Raed or Samia or Fatma face anymore. It's based on the philosophy. That's why 70 to 100 messengers of change, you cannot murder them, because it's confusing the system. And you have always people to replace you. I am not active so much on the ground anymore, by the way. We have a great team on the ground who's active very much. And also my face talking to settlers, it's a challenge. It's a challenge for Palestinians. And I have to understand my people. So I led the team now, building it with the movement, but I'm leading it with them as a thinker, as an advisor more. And we have a great managers who really manage that in a high way. Finally, I know that there is a price. And maybe it will be my life, I don't know other people's life. But this is the life that I choose, this is the person that I choose to be, and I have learned a lot that it's not about creating political party or bringing the Palestinian Mandela. I hate it when sometimes I come to events and they put my picture, the Palestinian Mandela. In Palestine, it doesn't work like this. If you call me the Palestinian Mandela, people will not talk to me. Honestly. You know, there is a joke about Arafat, a real man. He went to India and he found out that Benazir Toto was running election and she wanted him to reach out to a Palestinian student. He joined this religious movement who put an individual as their God. So after their God died, they vote for the Palestinian to become their God. So he became a God of 6 million people. So they wanted this movement to vote for her. So she asked Arafat to reach out to him. And when Arafat, like his people called that guy, he refused to come to meet Arafat. He said, I am God, I don't go to him. Then Arafat went to him. Then he said to him, I'm Yasser Arafat, how dare you don't come to meet me? And he said, I am a God of 6 million people. Then Arafat said, I am a God of 11 million God like you. This is another problem in our culture also. It has to be considered when it comes to nonviolence. Martin Luther King, Mandela were inspiration, but our culture is about family tribes, that every family has its own guru, okay? We have to consider that when we talk about leadership and leading. We study a lot, we do a lot of homework.
All right, we're gonna have to start moving to the door. We'll be around for a while. Thank you for being here. If you want to talk to us,